Welcome back to a brand new video, and for today's video we'll be going over all of the newly revealed cards for the new upcoming set Ascended Heroes, which is scheduled for release in January of 2026. So with that being said, let's get into these newly revealed cards from the new set. So starting out with the Beautyfly line here, kind of decent. It could be maybe like a budget type deck with that Force of Vitality. You got a lot of rapid evolution with that Stadium card, as well as we do have the Silcoon that does have the ability Cascading Cocoons, where when we play this card to evolve it up, during your turn you can use the ability to search out your deck for Cascoon or Silcoon and put it right onto your bench. And then with the Beautyfly, the best attack is going to be the Energy Straw of the 80x damage multiplier, where your opponent reveals their hand, and then we get to do 80 damage for each energy card that we find there. And then we do have a Dustox, which is pretty interesting, maybe for a energy control style kind of deck, where we have the Rustling Wind ability. The only thing I don't like here is that you have to flip a coin, and if heads, we can return an energy card attached to your opponent's active Pokemon back into their hand. So I feel like, unfortunately, this might not get as much play or any at all. And then moving on to our fire types, we got a single prize Entei here. Nothing really too crazy about it. Feels very vanilla, just 120 damage for the 2 fire energies if you have 4 fire energies in play. We got a new Numel here with 80 HP, and we got the Incandescent Body for the ability. This Pokemon is in the active spot and takes damage from attack from your opponent's Pokemon. The attacking Pokemon is now burned. So basically a free burn status. So this can definitely slide into the Mega Camerupt EX deck, get you some free burn status so that you can max out on that attack on the Mega Camerupt EX. And then we do have a single prize Camerupt, which also does slide right into the Mega Camerupt EX deck as well as a single prize attacker. We got the Power Stomp for 170 base damage, and then discard 2 energy from this Pokemon, which will be really easy to do so because we'll just use Ignition Energy, which will be 3 colorless energies to fulfill the attack, as well as discard the 2 energy. And then we got the Burn and Grill for 110 base damage. If your opponent's active Pokemon isn't burned, his attack does nothing. And then we get a new Snorunt here, which is I guess a minor upgrade here, where it has a 10 more HP, and so we got Snowrunts here with 70 HP now when this set is released, so you can still find a Buddy Poffin, and it does fare a little better against the Dragapult matchup. And then we got a new Mega Frostlass EX here. The Rebellion looks like the best attack, 50x damage multiplier. We have to do 50 damage for each card in your opponent's hand. So not too bad. If your opponent isn't able to thin out their hand, you can do quite a lot of damage with that first attack. I feel like this will definitely see some play here when it does get released. It looks like we're getting more owners Pokemon here from Journey Together almost. Like we got new Ends Pokemon here. We got the Ends Vanillite, Vanillish, and Vanillux. The Vanillish looks a little interesting, where you got the Sheer Cold, 60 base damage, and the defending Pokemon can't attack during your opponent's next turn. So, an interesting attack. The only thing that's not good is the energy cost. So I don't know if this is going to really see too much play. And then the Ends Vanillux definitely has control written all over it with that layered snow attack. You get to double the amount of damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon. So that definitely seems pretty good actually, but this is a stage 2 Pokemon, so it might be kind of tough to make this work here. But I definitely see this maybe being a deck in the future here, because doubling the amount of damage counters is not too bad here. And then the Blizzard is kind of, only okay. 120 base damage and then 10 damage to each of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So we got a new Snom here, a new Frostlass. We got Inviting Wings, where once during your turn if this Pokemon is inactive, we can have each player draw a card. Which is kind of okay. Maybe it can become some kind of a card milling deck altogether, because it doesn't say that you can only use this ability once during your turn. It looks like the ability does stack up, and it's fairly easy to retreat it out with that new Stadium card. So from Mega Evolution, where you can retreat out water Pokemon for free basically. So this might see some play. We got a new Glastrier here, where nothing too crazy about it, kind of vanilla. 20 damage and then 130 for the 3 water, not that great. We got a new Heliolisk line here, which looks pretty interesting. This can definitely be a deck by itself here, where we got the Frilled Lightning here. If you played Canary from your hand during this turn. You can use this ability once during your turn to search out your deck for 2 basic lightning energies and attach them to this Pokemon. And that ability will basically build up the attack here with the 70x damage multiplier. We can flip a coin for each energy attached to this Pokemon and do 70 damage for each heads. So not too bad at all for a single prize attacker. Next up we got a Mega Electros EX here. This is a stage 2 Pokemon, so it can be kind of tough to get into play here, and it is 3 prize cards. This is definitely looking like kind of one of the weaker Mega Evolutions here, where we got the Split Bomb where you do 60 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon, including their bench Pokemon. And then the Disaster Shock for 190 base damage, and then discard 2 lightning energy from this Pokemon, or you have the option to do that, to put paralysis on your opponent's active Pokemon. So maybe I'm wrong. This could be a way to get Paralysis Lock to work, but 2 energy cards is kind of steep. And this is a stage 2 as well, so I don't know, maybe. It has a chance, I don't know. It's kind of going to be hit or miss at this point. I'm kind of not sure how this is going to go, but it definitely has a chance to be a Paralysis Lock deck in the future. We got a Stunfisk here, which has some interesting retreat lock, but damage increase also, where you got 30 base damage, and then during your opponent's next turn, defending Pokemon can't retreat, and then during your next turn, this attack damage does 100 more damage to the defending Pokemon. So, kind of not bad. It'll be 160 damage altogether when you use this twice in a row. So you got a single prize Tapu Koko, which does look interesting. I feel like this can fit into any deck because you can just use either the Luminous Energy or the Prism Energy for that first attack for the first flight. You can only use this attack on your first turn and discard your hand to draw 5 cards. Not too bad, I would say. So you got new Team Rocket's Pokemon. You got Execute, which is not too special here. And then the Team Rocket's Executor. Trikinesis for 2 colorless energies. We can flip 3 coins. If all of them are heads, we can knock out one of your opponent's Pokemon. Very gimmicky. I don't see this really getting any play, honestly, as a serious deck. Maybe some kind of a troll deck, I guess, but that's about it. We got a new Misdreavus here, which is pretty decent, actually. We have the Ascension, where you can search out your deck for a Pokemon that evolves from this Pokemon and put it onto this Pokemon and evolve it up. So basically a free evolution into the Mismagius EX, which is not too bad. I'd say it's a good upgrade. And then we got a new single prize Mismagius here. Nothing too crazy. We got Assassin Magic for 60 base damage. If your opponent's active Pokemon is affected by a special condition, we can put 6 damage counters on one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. We got a new Rotom for the Gadget Show, which is not too bad. We got finally Psychic type coverage for that Gadget Show Rotom box, where we do 30 damage for each tool card attached to all of your Pokemon. So just in case some fighting types that are weak to Psychic become really good or popular, we definitely will get that type coverage with this Psychic type Rotom. Then we got the new Hops Phantom and Hops Trevenant. Not too great at all. The Horror Revenge, kind of vanilla, where you do 130 damage if one of your Pokemon were knocked out from an attack during your opponent's last turn. And then the Corner, which is a retreat lock with 90 base damage, but 3 energy cards to use this. And even with the Hops Choice Band, I think you go down to 2 energy cards. So, not really the greatest. I feel like this might not see too much play. Like, there's just better retreat lock options out there, like the Ethan's Sudowoodo or the Maractus. So we got a new Spectrier here, which is pretty vanilla, nothing too crazy. Well, actually, no, maybe not, actually, because the Phantom Beat, you discard all energy from this Pokemon and put 12 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. So this reminds me a lot of the Lost Zone Sableye, except you put all 12 damage counters on one Pokemon. So this can definitely be built up really quickly with the Gardevoir EX for that short period of time that it will stay in rotation at the same time with this card. But I feel like as soon as that Gardevoir EX rotates out, this Pokemon might not see all too much use, in my opinion. And then we got the Team Rocket Diglett here. We got the Rummage Around, flip a coin until tails, and then for each heads, discard the top card of your opponent's deck. Definitely can go into like a card mill deck of some kind, but the Doug Trio for Team Rocket does not really complement it in any way. We got the ability Pothole, where whenever your opponent's active Pokemon moves from the bench, we get to put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. So really not that great. Honestly, I thought the ability would be more about card milling, but it is not. And then we got a new Meditite, nothing too crazy, it has 70 HP, so you can find a Buddy Puffin. The Medicham, nothing too crazy. 150 damage. If you don't have exactly 7 cards in your hand, this attack does nothing. We got a new Pancham. The new Mega Hawlucha EX here. I'd say this is a decent Mega Evolution, where we have the Strong Body ability. When this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack, we get to flip a coin. If heads, this Pokemon is not knocked out, and its remaining HP becomes 10 instead. So it is a basic Pokemon, so its HP is already kind of low to begin with. It's only 250, so it's pretty susceptible to a one-hit KO. So the ability does help it out. And then we got the Somersault Dive for 120 base damage. If there is a Stadium in play, we can discard it to do 140 more damage. So 260 altogether, which is not too bad. So we got new Roly-Poly, new Carkol, and new Colossal. It feels a little gimmicky, but I feel like you can probably combine this with pre-existing Colossals to get some kind of a deck together. It can be some kind of a budget-friendly deck, where the first attack isn't too bad. It's not that hard to get 10 fighting energies in the discard. And then we can do 140 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon if we have the 10 energies that are fighting in the discard pile. And then the Bulky Pump, we can definitely supplement this with the Ignition Energy for the 3 colorless and attack cost. Do 220 base damage with this attack for a single prize Pokemon. We got a new Ogie Dogie single prizer, nothing too crazy. Definitely probably won't see any play. We got a new Team Rocket's Honchkrow here, which I feel like it complements the Team Rocket's Porygon Z that pretty much relies on Team Rocket's supporter cards to do damage here, where we have the Rocket Feathers with a 60x multiplier. We can discard any number of supporter cards with Team Rocket in their name, and this attack will do 60 damage for each card that we discarded in this way. So this helps out the Porygon 2, because the way the Porygon 2 worked out, it needed the supporter cards in the discard pile to do damage and not in your hand. So we can use something like this to discard a whole pile of these supporter cards to do damage, and then go into our Porygon Z to do extra damage as well after we get all those discards. Let's see, we got a new Galarian Zigzagoon, Galarian Linloon. Nothing too crazy about these. Very vanilla, nothing too crazy. And then we got the Galarian Obstagoon. Okay, that's where the action is. We got the Scar Shot for the 70x multiplier. We got to do 70 damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. So not too bad. The only thing that's not too great about it is that it's a stage 2. So it's going to be kind of tough to get into play in the first place. And 2 energy cards, one being colorless, is kind of good because we can use something like Counter Gain to knock off that colorless energy and just attack for 1 dark energy instead. Let's see, we got the new Scraggy, which has 80 HP, so we can't find it with Buddy Puffin. And then we got the Mega Scrafty EX here. It's kind of okay with the ability. If this Pokemon is in the active spot and takes damage, we get to put 5 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. And then we got Outlaw Leg for 160 base damage. We choose a random card from your opponent's hand and discard it, as well as discard the top card of your opponent's deck. So the only thing I don't really like about it is that it is weak to Grass type. There are quite a few good Grass type decks floating around. I just don't know if it's really worth it for 3 prize cards. I don't know, this feels like it might be mid, because I just feel like Scovillain is just so much better at accomplishing this. Like, it has the card mill from the top deck as well as your opponent's hand, and it attacks only, I think, for 1 or 2 energies, whereas this needs 3 energy cards to attack. And then we got a new Pangoro here, nothing too crazy. We got the Boss Punch for 80 base damage, plus if you have a Pancham on your bench with damage counters, it does 120 more damage. So 120 altogether. We got a new Petron. I feel like this can see some play here. It is a basic Pokemon, so basically it can be in any deck, essentially. And we got the last chain for the ability, where if this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from one of your opponent's Pokemon, we get to search out your deck for any card and put it into your hand. Not too bad. It's almost like a Pidgeot quick search after this Pokemon gets knocked out. And then we got the Mochi Rush for 20 base damage during your opponent's next turn. The Mochi Rush does 50 more damage. Or during your next turn, I'd say, not your opponent's. See, we got a new Ponyard, Bisharp, and King Gambit here. Looks like the King Gambit has the ability and the good attack, where we have the Supreme Overlord. Attacks used by this Pokemon deal 30 more damage for each of your opponent's active Pokemon. No, for each... to your opponent's active Pokemon for each prize card your opponent has taken. Okay. Not really the greatest. I feel like the multiplier is not good enough, really. It's only 30. But it is a single prizer Pokemon, so it could be definitely a good budget deck that can be worked around with this King Gambit here. And then the attack for the 2 metal, you get to do 180 base damage and then 50 damage to yourself. So that 180 can definitely jump up a lot in damage, because if you think about it, that's almost like the Burning Darkness from the Obsidian Flames Charizard that has 180 base damage as well, and also has a secondary effect on the attack though, where it does 30 more damage for each prize card your opponent has taken. So definitely interesting and definitely be a good budget deck. Then we're moving on to the dragon types. We got a new Dratini with 80 HP, so no Buddy Poffin. We got a Dragonair with 100 HP, and we got Evolution Discovery for the ability. If this Pokemon has any energy attached to it, we can use this ability once during your turn and search out your deck for Evolution Pokemon and put it into your hand. And then we got the single prize Rayquaza. Nothing too interesting, just pretty vanilla. We got the Ends Zekrom here. This is looking pretty good just because the Ends Zoroark EX just copies the attacks 1-for-1. And we got the Shred for 70 base damage, and this attack isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So basically now our Ends Zoroark EX can't get walled out really by anything, such as like the Ogerpon, the Cornerstone Ogerpon, or the Crustle or anything like that. And then we got Rampaging Thunder for 250 base damage. And this Pokemon can attack during your next turn. So 2 really good attacks that the Ends Zoroark EX can copy here. See, we got a new Noibat, a new Noivern. The Noivern is okay. Could be maybe good for a control style deck where we have agility, we can flip a coin, and then during your opponent's next turn we prevent all damage and effects of attacks done to this Pokemon. And then we got the Enhanced Blade for 70 base damage. If this Pokemon has a tool card on it, we do 70 more damage. So, or maybe not. Actually, I don't really like the fact that the agility you need to win a coin toss. So yeah, I feel like this might not be too great of a control option. Actually, nah. This would not be too great. And then moving on to the trainer cards here, we got a Light Ball tool card here, where the attacks of the Pikachu EX this tool card is attached to do 50 more damage to your opponent's active. So I feel like this is the first time we ever seen the Light Ball as a item card, I would say. I feel like it's a classic item card that you can hold in the game for your Pikachu as well. So yeah, 50 more damage. The thing is, I just never seen any really Pikachu EX decks being used, like, ever. So this feels like out of the blue, very random trainer card. So we'll have to see. Next up, we got the Thick Scale here, which will be a tool card as well. And the Ends Pokemon this card is attached, it takes 50 damage less from your opponent's Grass, Fire, Water, and Lightning Pokemon. So some really good type coverage here. 4 types to take 50 damage less from. Not too bad. Some good type coverage. So we got the new Canary trainer card. We have to discard a card from our hand to play this card, and then we can search out our deck for 4 lightning Pokemon, reveal them, and put them into your hand. So I'd say that's not too bad. I feel like maybe 1 or 2 copies can definitely work out pretty well in a lightning type deck. We got Surfer, which isn't going to be a new card. We got this before, I believe, in Journey Together or something, where you switch out your active with one of your bench Pokemon, and then if you do so, you draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. And, oh yeah, there it goes. Yeah, it says here in parentheses, reprint from Surging Sparks, actually, with new artwork. And Then next up, we got the Anthea and Concordia here. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but we can only play this card if you have the ends Darmanitan, the ends Zark EX, the ends Reshiram, ends Zekrom, ends Klinklank, and the ends Vanillux in play. So pretty steep price to play this card. So that's all 6 Pokemon in play. But the reward is supposedly pretty good. During this turn, if your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out by damage from attack from one of your ends Pokemon, we get to take 3 extra prize cards. So essentially, if we knock out your opponent's Mega Evolution, we win the game with just that one knockout. So pretty insane. I feel like this can still see some play. It feels gimmicky, so it might be just a 1 copy in your deck, similar to something like a Briar or something like that. And then lastly, we got a new stadium card, just 1 new stadium card here. Looks like no new item cards at all here. So we got the new stadium card, Night Mine, where attacks used by each Terra Pokemon in play for both you and your opponent cost like extra colorless energy. So not too bad. It can definitely stall out your opponent and possibly buy yourself a free turn here. So there we have it. Those are all of the newly revealed cards for the upcoming set Ascended Heroes. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.